Hello, dear friends. Well, I'm very happy that I'm with you because before it, twice or thrice, the YouTube blocked my appearance with my new streams. Okay, today I will speak about the marriage between the Pentagon and Elon Musk's plans to put AI everywhere where it's possible. And well, let's look at the new idea of Pete Hagseth and Elon Musk, and they expressed this idea quite recently on January 12th in the air base where Elon Musk has its Starbase.
Pentagon and Trump's peace board. There are 6 remarks by Pete Hagseth from his speech on the January 12th at the Starbase that belongs to Elon Musk in Texas. I have done it just to demonstrate introducing AI facilities into the U.S. military to support Trump's peace board. Here are the 6 theses in Pete Hagseth's speech that he made with Elon Musk at his private base Starbase, Texas, January 12, 2026. He got merged the Pentagon's program of getting AI everywhere with the successful D.O.G.E practice to clear military Augean stables of swindlers-crooks with their ties to revanchist Dems and Republicans in name only. And there's also an idea of mine that the peace board will also get profits with this new practice of maintaining peace and order with such cyber warriors of the Pentagon. This practice in the USA might be useful for cadets and volunteers from the military of the countries participating in the peace board. So far, there are 19 of them out of 60 invited. But there will clearly be more in the hope to get investment for peace, instead of wars with devastation, as it still is in Ukraine and even Gaza. The essence of Pete Hagseth's Arsenal of Freedom program itself is to replace with AI technocrats those who have ideological and sexual ethical and racist twists in their heads in the Pentagon and its structures. Hagseth's core message is a critique, but not a reprisal, of the mentality of those military and MIC people with their risk aversion. This is when the previous system in the Pentagon has been too cautious and slow, which explains why fighters do not get the best technology to win on the battlefield. So, 6 theses of the speech. 1. Accelerate innovation to win the strategic competition of the 21st century in key security areas of the 21st century. Artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, quantum technologies, hypersonic weapons, long-range drones, space capabilities, directed energy, biotechnology. 2. Hagseth's direct reference to Elon Musk with his brilliant D.O.G.E success. By the way, it seems to me that Hagseth was also referring to Musk's brilliant Freedom Project as the basis of his Party of America. It was created, but not registered on July 5, 2025. I have 4 or 5 streams dedicated to it for the curious guys. But so far, this possible alliance of the Pentagon and the Party of America, well, after all, a brilliantly powerful structure with huge finance, was covered by Hagseth with references to hypersonic and drones as a guarantee of U.S. victories in future, if anything. 3. At the same time, Hagseth immediately rejects accusations that Musk and he are in a sort of conspiracy against the evidently rotten bipartisan system. He presented the SpaceX as an example and symbol of American power. It was a trick against those who beat their chests as a patriot of the United States. 4. With one such set of words, Hagseth presented Musk as a symbol of U.S. power and hints at the end of the chatter of the Trump team with the Kremlin. In particular, at the start to negotiations, they have been going on since 1993 and should resume after February 5th of this year. But why does Trump 47 need this? Why should he spend time and money from the U.S. federal treasury on these useless start to negotiations? After all, in Switzerland and throughout the rest of the comfortable world, There has been decades of chatter about land-based and submarine-launched missiles. Whereas today Elon Musk alone, not counting the billionaire Bezos with his thousands of satellites for high-speed internet communications, already has many thousands of his private satellites in orbit around the Earth. And now Musk's base in Texas called Starbase, as Hagseth said, is the perfect place to talk about the future of innovation in the military department. Like, this is no longer Geneva, where for half a century diplomats talked until February 5th about preventing a nuclear missile catastrophe for large budget money of the Russian Federation, in particular. 5. Thanks to Musk and the SpaceX team, who are a model for everyone who does business or is going to create their own private companies with a vision of well-being and security for the whole country with more and more new innovations. This is Trump and Musk's long-term bet on the U.S. private sector without the strangles of crooked Dems and renegade Republicans. 6. The end of bureaucracy and priority to fighters, not lobbyists and contractors with their corrupt connections, relying on regulators bureaucrats. But Hagseth cyber fighters are no longer door kickers, i.e. not stormtroopers kicking down bunker doors with their feet, if necessary. So, Pete Hagseth's speech itself is emotionally and intellectually more intense than I am presenting it here. Well, what kind of fighters will the Pentagon have to support Trump's new structure called the Peace Board? Quite possibly, instead of the frail and ineffective UN Security Council forces. There are about 60,000 of them from more than 120 countries of the world. The Peace Board already has many tasks to maintain the peace pacts concluded under the Trump 47 guarantees in 2025 and 2026. But professional pacification requires trained military and other personnel and even volunteers. So the Pentagon has a wonderful opportunity to transfer its future experience of digital fighters, volunteer peacekeepers to the military of countries enlisted in the Peace Board like Kazakhstan or Azerbaijan. And they are ready, even at the cost of renouncing ties with the Russian Federation, if the Kremlin does not join the Peace Council for its $1 billion frozen in the United States. And now a few remarks on the Peace Board with Pentagon cyber warriors and their cadets, if any in the world. The population is becoming involved in AI unevenly, but rapidly. In the Russian Federation, 8% of the adult population relies on AI by the end of 2025, which is comparable to Cameroon and Kenya. The Russian Federation with such a reliance on AI is in 119th place in the world. Although 92.2% of the population of the Russian Federation, or 133 million people, use the internet. Perhaps this is due to the low level of knowledge of the population. For example, in English, 40% in the Russian Federation somehow know it. 5% know English tolerably well for shopping. Only 3% speak English fluently, although almost all of them are already relocators outside the Russian Federation, and less than 1% understand President Trump's rapid and emotional speech. This situation with the lack of knowledge of the English language by the masses determines their vulnerability to cyber propaganda against Trump in the Russian Federation, Belarus and Ukraine. And they are victims of the denigration of Trump 47's peace initiatives at the Davos 2026 Economic Forum, at least. My 50 years of experience studying the role of the armed forces and society in the United States and the Orient helps to assess their reliance on AI in reshaping civil-military relations in the nearest future. For now, let's consider the relationship between the military and civilians through the prism of the decisions of the Economic Forum in Davos 2026, and later on the results of the Security Conference in Munich on February 13-15. There will be a turn from mistrust to trust with AI facilities in the armed forces and society, as I guess. In the U.S. National Security Strategy 2025, President Reagan's previous trust but verified policy in the 2000s was met with resistance from the former U.S. military political elite with its call for zero trust. This is the result of the U.S. Democratic Party's greedy credulity towards the Maoists since the time of President Clinton. and even earlier from President Carter's times. So far, in the field of AI, China competes with the United States and is even ahead of them. The ruling CCP was able to use the AI secrets seized from the United States, Canada, Great Britain, and Israel with high efficiency. It is no coincidence that the old school in the U.S. intelligence community advocates the thesis of never trust but always verify, also in the relationship between the military and society under Trump 47. Meanwhile, Secretary of War Pete Hagseth relies on AI to create qualitatively new forms of relations between the armed forces and society in the paradigm of cybersecurity of the United States and its allies. Any security is based on a material and moral foundation. New priorities in the cybersecurity paradigm were outlined by President Trump at the Davos Forum by creating the Peace Board. At the same time, the economic and philosophical priorities of security were brilliantly justified by Argentine President Milei. To them were added the reasoning of Elon Musk with his innovations, which were included in the restructuring of the Pentagon from January 12th on innovations from the field of IT, AI as support for Trump's Peace Board. The essence of U.S. military and Trump's Peace Board cybersecurity innovations is as follows. 1. Capitalism with AI is against the communism of the PRC, where President Xi, by decision of the 20th Congress of the CPC, 2022, is creating a sovereign AI without relying on AI previously stolen abroad under President Augean. It was no accident that he was demonstratively removed from the presidium of the Congress. 2. In a report in Davos 2026, Argentine President Javier Milei dismisses the political and moral school of Niccolo Machiavelli, with its cynicism and secrecy in politics, as unnecessary virtues of the 15th and 16th centuries in the 21st century. Here are a few of Milei's theses. Impartial AI does not need the government to correct market mistakes by federal and local bureaucracy, self-serving and corrupt, because in Milei's, the free market never makes mistakes. The cognitive potential of human being, society, and the military is constantly developing, no matter what. And therefore AI says a firm no to the deception of the civil and military bureaucracy with its precepts from Machiavelli. Honestly obtained private property should be based on AI, in particular when buying Greenland into the ownership of the United States, with a justified suppression of the resistance of the corrupt bureaucracy of the European Union and NATO with their alleged reliance on their AI, but in fact received from the PRC. AI plays a major role in suppressing the pernicious influence of bureaucracy as a deep state on the well-being of society and the armed forces. If the deep state kills private property, then it thereby gradually and inevitably reduces the intellectual potential of the society and the military, undermining the well-being and security of any nation. Argentina has overcome a 100-year crisis in 2 years through the fault of the deep state with its principles of giving fish from the center to the regions. Milei encourages the regions to fish themselves with ITAI from the United States and not from the PRC, as in Brazil. Autonomous self-development and self-defense against natural and hostile threats to the peaceful development of any country is now real and fast based on AI. How to find the right solutions when relying on AI. Elon Musk spoke about this on the day of the end of the Davos Forum. AI helps answer questions that no one but you have asked it before, and added, it's better to be an optimist with the wrong fantasies than the pessimist with the right solutions. These and other similar reflections lead to conclusions that 1. Corruption in the government and the military. It proceeds from the disbelief of the federal and local bureaucracy in its mission as a servant of the people, the example of Zelensky and his military. 2. Replacement needed corrupt officials by those who believe in justice and honor, but not according to Machiavelli, as with the EU-NATO bureaucracy. The renewal of the ruling circles around Trump 47 took place in 6 months with the reliance on ITAI in the hands of Elon Musk and his D.O.G.E team. But the question arises, coup to replace the agents of the deep state in the civil society and the military. When answering this question, it is suggested to look at 3 historical examples from the time of Alexander the Great with his reliance on peaceful relations between city-states, both in Greece and outside it as the conquered half the world. Other examples can be found in Victor Davis Hanson's 8-page work, Dueling Populisms, Urban Equality versus Rural Liberty. He proves why and how the American middle class in the countryside and cities fell under the influence of Trump's populism. Hanson's America 47, how Alexander the Great's Hellas and the Great Roman Empire fell under the weight of globalization, which, in the form of mass illegal migration, gave rise to endless and senseless revolutionary uprisings, compares it with the riots of Trump's opponents 47. But more interesting are the examples of Gaza and Ukraine in the Milley Report as potential results of a healthy, digital capitalism, following the example of digital Hellas. Now, the Peace Board under Trump and Milley are remarks with Witkoff and Kushner's speeches as solid arguments operates on such principles to increase strategic investment for creation of wealth and security, and not to be plundered by this or that bureaucracy without ITAI control. In their speeches at the Davos Forum, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner firmly stated that with the reliance on AI, there will only be a peace plan A and no plan B. It was formalized in the open and mutually beneficial interaction of the United States with peacekeeping partners in the Middle East and in Ukraine. According to Jared Kushner, there should be no secret intellectual property in the interest of peace for all. This thesis is consonant with the plans of Elon Musk's Party of America to create a free orbital internet by the end of 2027 for the participation of the general public in the United States and the world in their own monitoring of both the pros and cons for peace and not as reasons for war. Elon Musk's free network called the Freedom Protocol fits into an integral part of the Peace Board created by Trump at the Davos Forum 2025. In the meantime, Elon Musk and Pete Hagseth have been cooperating since January 12 to provide 3 million military personnel, civilian employees, reservists, and the National Guard with ITAI assets from the Google in favor of the Pentagon. There will be a separate stream about this. For now, I will list a number of advantages of AI at the disposal of the military and civilians in the United States for filtering out data unnecessary for analytics through AI, risk management before and after an attack on the enemy, revision of the practice of fixed prices in the evaluation and purchase of components for AI and the armed forces from TNCs and state-owned enterprises in favor of the private sector, taking into account the competition of the federal and local bureaucracy. Previously, the procurement of ITAI was controlled by the federal structure CISA. Under Biden, it lived on bribes when processing military purchases of ITAI exclusively in the public sector. The viciousness of those purchases is that CISA, from the Capitol offices for bribes, regulated the abolition or introduction of secrecy for Pentagon contractors. Now Pete Hagseth is replacing this practice with autonomous AI tools. They say that they were created with the expectation of monitoring the combat situation in real time, but relying not on the public sector, but increasingly on the private sector and third sectors as the main contractors of the Pentagon in the supply of ITAI. Now contracts are drawn up by AI when calculating results from applied ITAI tools, and not on hypothetical efficiency forecasts from digital platforms. Constant evaluation of the resulting AI platforms in terms of their real effectiveness in the emergence and competition of new platforms, now supplied without the previous restrictions of secrecy. Cooperation with the private sector, open on the Pentagon's websites, serves to increase innovation in the field of AI without being stifled by lobbyists. I will cite a number of ideas by Pete Hagseth dated January 12 here in my interpretation. A bet on the growth of creativity and initiative of both civilian politicians and military officers and even generals. The initiative under Biden was limited to secrets and subordination, often relying on the DEI principles illuminated by Trump 47. Now it is not the principles of inclusivity and wokeism, historical and other cognitive alleged insight, but pure and unclouded from that nonsense with AI that is responsible for the speed and efficiency of critical thinking inside the US military. Now the Pentagon operates at speed and ahead of the enemy according to the Hagseth scheme, deterrence and defeat. The role of an open virtual agent network within the military personnel, among civil servants, veterans of military service and employees of the military-industrial complex with their families for the implementation of decrees and orders of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief is sharply increasing. Such a military-civilian agent network discusses those orders, but does not replace or cancel, but only enlarges supplements. The Pentagon's virtual agent network of many autonomous AIs in the personal possession of civilians from the families and friends of military personnel records trends and threats to U.S. national security without minor mistakes in Stalin's practice of cutting down the forest and flying ships. The creation of an open virtual space of social networks inside and outside the Pentagon by numerous NGOs with their reliance on IT/AI serves to intensively and effectively A. Educate the masses to work with AI, B. Release their application of skills and practice, C. Exchange of positive experience, D. Combining a real-time data set from NGOs for the Pentagon's quantum computers. Autonomous solar panels in a number of states such as California, Texas, Nevada, etc. for NGO networks under the auspices of the Pentagon already serve as self-defense against hackers when they are detected by monitoring with the elimination of potential damage relying on quantum computers of both the Pentagon and its contractors from the private sector in real time. So, the American dream, the nation and the military are united, is filled with concrete content based on AI. Therefore, in 2 to 3 years, the emergence of prototypes of city-states, as in ancient Greece with their likeness of the agora in the form of masses of free users of IT/AI tools received from the Pentagon and its private contractors, is realistic. Now such a cybersecurity construct is capable of suppressing the corruption of the civilian and military bureaucracy as the main enemy of the USA. After all, it was that swamp of corruption that prevented Trump 46 from coming to power, creating tensions on the borders of the United States and beyond under Biden. Today, the revanchism of Trump's opponents is a source of domestic terrorism with its reliance on external donors and pro-terrorism-minded fans to come to the World Soccer Cup 2026. The next stream will be about the details of the use of AI by the U.S. military. This is about agentic software, or agentic AI with agentic software, for the Pentagon. This new term complements my previous arguments in 2 monographs on public security as the core of reforming the armed forces and society and the temporary interaction of the Russian Federation with the United States and NATO countries in the joint and effective counteraction to international terrorism in its Islamic form in the 2000s. At that time, my reasoning was based on the experience of counterterrorism in the countries of Scandinavia, Canada and the United States with their reliance on the I2 platform created by the British. Its action was successfully tested by the Chinese during the preparation and holding of the summer 2008 and winter 2022 Olympic Games. And the Russian Federation was preparing for kinetic, not cybernetic warfare against Ukraine and NATO. Today, in front of the Russian Federation, Trump is waving the peace plan with Ukraine under his guarantees with their reliance on AI. We will soon find out about this at the security conference in Munich on February 13-15. So far, the Russian Federation has only funny Putin's digital sky strictly for birds. Now the Americans have the platform designated as the latest generation of multi-agent artificial intelligence. This novelty in the field of AI is able not only to respond to requests like conventional chatbots or generative models like ChatGPT, but to independently solve many tasks to ensure security, defense, and law and order for public security. It is a pity that in December 2008, January 2009, Putin dispersed the academy created by him in 2000 with just such a set of research goals: security, defense and law enforcement, SDL. From this academy SDL in 2007-2008, I received the title of corresponding member and then full member of the ASDL. At that time, President Medvedev, when presenting some medal order to Hugo Chavez, learned from him that he already had such an decoration of honor from the ASDL. Well, in a rage, President Medvedev liquidated that brainchild of the then Prime Minister Putin through the Supreme Court of the Russian Federation. Until the next stream.
Well, guys, that's all that I wanted to say to you. Please respond, make remarks, critics, and many other pleasant things. See you very soon. I'll prepare another stream on cybersecurity of the United States and its influence all over the world, not only in Russia but beyond it. Bye bye.